G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/Am I the A-hole. Now if you love this video like I love you, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy the bloody good content. Posted by user Am I the A-hole Adopted Brother 1. Titled, Am I the A-hole for telling my sister that our parents chose to adopt me while she was an accident? My sister Emily didn't like me from the moment I got there. I remember that when I wanted to play with her, she wouldn't share her toys or talk to me until I asked our parents to help, and they'd force her to share. When we were in high school, things were a bit better since our interests began to overlap, and we did have some conversations, but she was always distant. She spoke to me like I'm a stranger. Our parents hated that we weren't getting along, and forced us to hang out. They locked us into a room many times to force us to interact, but she would act friendly and fake laughs and conversations until they'd open the door thinking we were getting along. Then she'd run out and go back to not talking to me again. They sent us to therapy together, but Emily would just sit there staring at the floor and never talk. They even paid for us to go on a short trip together a few years back, but she got her friends to join us without telling me about it, and the whole trip I was alienated and isolated. Our parents were furious when they found out, and they didn't speak to her for a month. I also found out that she was conceived on Valentines Day, and she was unplanned. Our father told us this when he was drunk at a party, and he thought it was hilarious, but I saw she was hurt. When I tried to approach her, she slammed her door in my face and refused to speak to me for weeks. Once Emily hit 18, she moved across the country and rarely visited. She moved back home now because of current events. This morning, our parents were not home and this happened. I asked her to bring me something from the kitchen when I saw her going towards it, and she said no. I snapped and asked her, "Why are you still being so cold to me? I've been so nice and have tried to have a relationship with you, but you refuse to budge." She yelled at me and said, "You aren't my brother. I never considered you to be my brother, so stop trying." And she proceeded to say I wouldn't even care about your existence if it weren't for the fact that my parents adopted you. It made me so angry, and I told her that our parents chose to adopt me. You were an accident, so watch what you say. She screamed at me and left the room after that, and began packing up her stuff. I tried to stop her, but she told me to frick off and left the house before our parents got home. She was crying, and I was still angry, so I let her go. I have no idea where she went, and she isn't answering her phone. Our parents got back and were upset when I told them what happened, and tried calling her, but she didn't answer. They comforted me when I told them what she said, and it made me feel a little better. I called one of her friends, who picked up and told me I'm a huge a-hole, and that she wants me to stay away from Emily. She told me not to contact Emily ever again, and that she isn't going to come back. She said she is going no contact with me and our parents indefinitely, and that she despises me as a person. Am I the a-hole here? This is one of those ones, again, it's everyone sucks here in this situation, but I think Emily sucks more. So she can dish out an entire childhood of bullying, abuse, and just ignoring them and making them feel unwanted, but the one time they clap back, it's like, you know what, I'm done. I don't need to take this abuse from someone I've been abusing my whole life. I don't think OP should have said that, but at the same time I don't blame you for saying that after being abused for so long by them. It really sucks that you said something so hurtful, and I feel like it was unnecessary to say it. So you shouldn't have said that, dude. Boing says, everyone sucks here. Your sister obviously has issues with you being family, and she's always alienated you. But saying something like that to hurt her is not a good thing to do. You're both obviously hurting, and you're directing it at each other, which is only making things worse. And Solo Style replies, you're the a-hole dude. You guys don't get along. She doesn't like you, there is a lot going into that, and at least from your side, it doesn't look like it's your fault, and more your guys' parents. But she doesn't have to like you, and you can be upset by that fact. Where you absolutely crossed the line is telling her she was an accident, knowing that she was hurt by that before. Everything she had just said, while hurtful in the moment, was how she felt about you. It might not be what you wanted to hear, but it was what she felt and had every right to feel, and she kept it between your guys' relationship, saying she wouldn't care about your existence. She wouldn't have known you if you weren't adopted. That's a fact. That's not even her saying you were lucky to be adopted or anything like that, which would put her in the a-hole territory. You went for the jugular because you could, because you're the favorite. Acknowledge it and leave her alone. If you want to try and do some good here, call out your crappy parents who made her feel that way apparently her entire childhood. Update: after reading your comments, you're an even bigger a-hole. 1. Don't contact her. That's the least you can do. It would literally only be to make you feel like a better person. 2. Siblings have strained relationships all the time. You were not entitled to be coddled by her. You clearly had your parents for that. And 3. She deserved to be punished for hurting your feelings on a vacation. Grow up. No, she didn't, and certainly not by being ignored by your parents for a month. She invited friends to be a buffer with someone she didn't like. Honestly, I don't blame her, because she clearly didn't have any support at home. I'll try and find the comments. Info: how old were you/her when you were adopted? How old are you now? There is a lot of info we're not getting, and it's weird that you were sent to therapy together. You should have had separated sessions. It's actually weird that you were forced to do anything together at all. I was 8 and she was 6. They wanted the therapist to make us get along and be friendly with each other, so they sent us to therapy, and that was usually for 2 hours, 5 days a week. This went on for almost a year, and she just didn't talk during the therapy, and the therapist asked us to let her be, but our parents were adamant about it and sought out another therapist. But Emily refused to go and would lock herself in the bedroom if they tried to make her go for it. Now I am 22 and she is 20. What other questions do you have? OP didn't answer any more questions there. Here is a comment though, but there's like 4 paragraphs before it that are way too long. But their reply is, I was 8 when I was adopted. I'm 2 years older to her. Our parents were certainly more hard on her. I would ask them not to be, but it wasn't that bad. I would get whatever I wanted, but they would make her work for it by completing a few chores. They said she'd lived comfortably for more years than I did, and to make it equal, she had to do more chores than I did. I don't think it makes a lot of sense, and I tried to stop it, but she only objected a few times and then would do it without saying anything. Hope that gives you guys in the comments a bit more to work with. Posted by user Apartment Trouble, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling this college guy's mum that her coming into his interview cost him the job? I am a hiring manager at a tech company, and I was hiring for a summer internships a little while ago. We had a guy, about 19 years old, applying for a summer internship between his freshman and sophomore years of college. It was a virtual interview over Zoom because of COVID. A minute or 2 in, when I was introducing myself, his mum came in and introduced herself and started talking about her son's work ethic. I thought it was a little strange. I said something polite about wanting to hear from him. She just didn't get the hint and kept coming into camera frame during the interview and interrupting her son to answer questions for him. I asked a few technical questions, which he seemed to answer well, and then cut the interview fairly short. I thought that was all over and done with until I'd gotten an email from a woman a month later asking about her son's application. She seemed offended he hadn't gotten an acceptance or rejection. It bothered me. I felt bad for the kid, honestly. Way back when I was a teenager, my mum used to pull the same crap. But luckily, she only did that when I was 15 and working for a day camp, not when I was an adult applying for engineering jobs. But I felt like this poor kid was getting his chances ruined because his mum wasn't giving him the chance to apply on his own. I sent an email back saying I was not at liberty to send information about an application to anybody but the applicant. I also asked HR to send an email to the kid saying sorry, but we were not making him an offer. It's something we usually do, but his rejection email must have slipped through the cracks with all the COVID craziness. Anyway, after we sent that, I got a phone call from his mum. She had forwarded a copy of the email, and she was demanding answers. I said that I could not comment on the guy's performance in the interview to her, as she was not the applicant. If he wanted to reach out to me, I was happy to give him some feedback. However, I could say that regardless of his performance, her presence in the interview took him out of consideration for the position. We were looking for an independent and self-driven person for the position, and for that reason, it is important to see an applicant speak for themselves, follow up themselves, etc. I also said that, as a piece of advice, every hiring manager I've met in my career who sees someone other than the applicant answering questions during an interview, following up on the applicant's behalf, etc., would also put their resume in the do not hire pile. Since, while the applicant may be skilled and motivated, they need the ability to demonstrate those traits themselves. She fudging blew up at me over that, kinda cussing me out to the point where I hung up. Am I the a-hole for how I handled this? Maybe I should have kept my mouth shut way earlier. No, she kept coming at you, and she won't take no for an answer. I think that you did what was right and what's required of you. I think you handled it well, and not like an a-hole would handle the situation, so more power to you. Not the a-hole. It's probably better for the kid that you told her directly, seeing as she clearly does not respect him enough to believe him if he disclosed that she cost him the job. She snapped at you because you gave her feedback that painted her in a poor light, and she thought she did her son a wonderful favor. You're probably the first person in a while to stand up to her. You're right. She needed someone to burst her freaking bubble. Though I kinda feel bad for that guy, because he probably doesn't want his mother to baby him like that, but he's in a pickle because he seemingly still lives with her. Not the a-hole, but take that with a grain of salt, as in the end, that dude was treated unfairly for things out of his control. Maybe he should have been given some sort of chance. I mean, even his interview was cut short, so he had no way to make up for that. Yeah, the poor guy lives with his mother, can't move out until he has money for rent, can't get money for rent without a job, and can't get a job while he lives with his mother. Edit. Hopefully when COVID calms down, he can get in-person interviews where his mother can't ruin his chances. Unless his mother shows up for in-person interviews also. Not the a-hole. I feel so bad for this poor man. Not the a-hole. Helicopter mum needed to be put in her place. Hopefully she learns. Sadly, while I think it's crappy someone gets put in the D&H pile for something like that, I can completely understand why. Hopefully the young man can solve that issue and get hired somewhere else. Posted by user Dr. Emil Schorfhausen, titled, Am I the a-hole for hiding the good tortilla chips? I and my husband have a favorite brand of tortilla chips. However, my husband never, and I mean never, clips the bag after helping himself to chips, and thus the rest of the chips in the bag go stale. I asked so many times to reclose the bag, but honestly got tired of being a nag and tired of stale chips. So I started to stash a second bag of chips for me where my husband rarely looks. My thinking was, I obviously care about freshness more than he does, so I'll make sure to have a fresh stash and he can dip from the open bag. Well, after a couple of months of this, he found my stash. Then he accused me of making him eat stale chips. For the record, I never made him eat anything. He says I should just close the community bag because it's not a big deal. And when I say, well, if it's not a big deal, why don't you do it? He just says he's forgetful. I seriously will probably just find a new hiding place, but am I the a-hole? Is there a better option? Edit. This is a major transgression for him. He is otherwise awesome. It's just this specific issue I'm asking about. Divorce is not on the table unless he starts to leave the guac without the lid. Second edit. Thank you to everyone who has given suggestions to make it easier for him. Clips, rubber bands, large ziplocs, airtight containers. I tried them all. Clips lie discarded on the counter, rubber bands the same. The ziploc bags will remain open and lids on anything else will remain off or open. Is he lazy? Thoughtless in this instance? Did he intend on getting more chips before leaving the kitchen and forgetting? It's all of them. And I got tired of it. So I thought there was a chance I would be the a-hole because I gave up and decided to just take care of myself here. That being said, it's been super fun reading about how so many people have secret stashes. I think it's clear that OP is not the a-hole in this situation, and the husband refused to change his stance on the chips. He deserves to eat the stale chips. End of story. Don't be mad that your wife can't work with you not compromising. What's wrong with you? Silly, silly husband. I don't think that I would call you the a-hole here, because if he can't close a bag of shared food items then complains about it, that automatically makes him the a-hole in my book. However, I think you guys should just establish that there is no community chip bag anymore. When you go to the store, literally purchase two. Have two different clips of different colors, red for you, blue for him, and clip them to your respective bags and eat out of your respective bags. Since COVID, I buy like 6 bags at a time to avoid shopping more often. Not the a-hole, and love how you had to preemptively mention that you aren't going to divorce him over this. So many posts get crazy with red flags and gaslighting, and some rightly so. I wanted to make it clear that this is not a deal breaker. What about a large container or Ziploc bag to put chips in? You're obviously not the a-hole here. I do the same thing with my partner. My bag and his bag. Posted by user Throwaway Because BDH. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my family to stop celebrating? 6 years ago, I met the best person in the world. She was a sweet old lady that moved in next door, named Maggie. Maggie taught me how to knit. We watched Mama's Family together. I helped her give her cat her medicine. I helped her water her plants when she got too frail to do it herself. She knitted me a hat for every holiday. I helped her install Wi-Fi, and Maggie was a nurse in World War II. Maggie passed away 3 months ago at the age of 94. She went peacefully in her sleep, and it is the heartbreak of my life. About 2 weeks after she died, I noticed a man walking into Maggie's house. Maggie didn't have any family except for a nephew who lived across the country. I went up to him and asked who he was, and he said he was going to clean out his aunt's things. That was the end of that until yesterday. Maggie's nephew had rung my doorbell and had told me that Maggie left me most everything she had in her will. Maggie left me $1 million in an account that I can open when I turn 18, most of her personal effects, and her cat, Blue, who I rescued 2 days after she died and kept. She wrote me and her nephew letters. She said some stuff I would rather not share. It tore me up about Maggie even more. She was such a gentle soul, and she deserved better. I started crying, and I told my parents. They started celebrating about it immediately, and I asked them to stop, and they did. Until today, where they presented me with a cake that said, "Hey, you get to go to college." To say that it made me upset is an understatement. I get that Maggie's money is a life-changing thing, but I would much rather have Maggie. I told them to stop celebrating, then I went to my room to hold Blue and cry. My brother knocked on my door and told me I was being an a-hole because our parents are just happy for me. Am I the a-hole? No, you're not an a-hole, and it's obvious that they just don't understand where you're coming from. Neither of them all can relate to the grief that you're feeling right now for Maggie. But unfortunately, that is the way that life is, and everyone has a time that they've got to go. And Maggie was lucky to have you, OP, and very lucky to make it to the ripe old age of 94. A lot of people I know didn't even make it past 20, so, I would rather be in Maggie's shoes than that. But judging by all the actions and everything described in this post, I wouldn't say that you're the a-hole. Your parents are being insensitive. They probably are just happy for you, but never learned proper empathy for situations like this. They may be trying, in the worst way possible, to cheer you up. But regardless, they're going about this wrong and not letting you have your grief. Might be worth trying to talk to a therapist or someone about this, since none of your family are giving you proper support. They obviously care more about the money than the close friend you lost, not the a-hole. Yes, they care about the money, but I think it's because it's such a weight lifted for them. They are obviously thankful for the deceased neighbor's generous gift to their daughter, but I think it also might be them hoping it helps her get through her sadness. They probably hate seeing OP having such a hard time and might think they are helping cheer her up. It's totally the wrong way to go about it, as she needs time to grieve. The brother is the actual a-hole here, as he is mediating terribly. OP is not the a-hole. Edit. I referred to OP as a female, and nowhere in the post does it say that. My bad. But it isn't their money, so them having a cake that says, you get to go to college, as if the parents have enough money to send OP now, they don't. It's not their money. I've never had someone celebrate for someone else's large windfall of money. They think it's their money, that's why they're celebrating. Or they think, oh, thank goodness, there's no way we could have paid for her college. It doesn't mean they're out to fleece her. Seriously, you wouldn't know it from reading Am I the A-hole? But in the real world, not every family is toxic. I know many families who would legit just be happy for their child getting the kinds of opportunities this kind of inheritance would afford them. Their celebration is tone-deaf and inappropriate, but I can easily imagine normally caring parents who weren't close to the deceased feeling such a burden lifted from them because of this inheritance that they go a little too far. Still not the a-hole to the OP, but let's not jump to assuming they're horrible monsters. Posted by user Pinching Berries. Titled, Am I the a-hole for having a bowel movement when we had company over? Hi everybody. I hope someone can give me perspective here. I am a 24-year-old woman and my boyfriend is a 25-year-old man. For the purposes of this post, I'll call my boyfriend Jake. Jake had a guest over yesterday in the afternoon, Max, and they were playing video games and having snacks in the living room. When Max started setting up his Switch, Jake took a quick trip to the corner shop to get drinks and snacks. I went out to greet him and ask him how things were. We talked a bit because we know each other pretty well now. Around the time that Max was done putting the cords in the right places, Jake was back and ready to hang out. Not wanting to be a bother, I just relaxed on the armchair playing with my phone. During their play session, I started to feel a bowel movement coming. As I typically do in such a situation, I headed to the bathroom. I did my business, washed my hands, and when I left, they were both looking at me weirdly. I thought nothing of it, so I messed around on my phone on our armchair while they kept playing. Max abruptly said he had something to do, gathered his things, and left. When he left, he and Jake were talking in front of our apartment for a few minutes. This was strange to me, as Max implied he was in a hurry when he left. After my boyfriend sat back down, he asked if I was feeling unwell, or if I'd eaten something that didn't agree with me. I said I felt fine, and he sort of sighed, and asked why I had to go number 2 in the bathroom attached to the living room. This stunned me for a second, because I never expected such a question about my bathroom habits in my own apartment. But Jake kept pressing the issue, and asked why I wouldn't go use the bathroom in the master bedroom. I told him the living room bathroom was closest. He finally got visibly irritated, and told me that he and Max had heard everything I did in there, which made them kind of uncomfortable. This was when I finally got it. He wanted me to be discreet and go poo in a place where I wouldn't inconvenience him. I scoffed at this and told him that in my apartment, where I live, I was going to go to the bathroom wherever I wanted. Well, not wherever, but you get the idea. Then I asked if this was the first time he realized I defecated, or if I hurt his sensibilities by excreting as a woman. He said no, but that at least when company was over, he thought I should have some degree of modesty. Then he told me not only did they hear it, but they smelled it faintly after I left the bathroom. I'm completely hurt, but Jake insists that at least when guests are over, I should try to be a bit more modest. I don't think I'm the a-hole here, but I can't be sure. Did I really do something wrong? I'm gonna be real, I'm on Jake's side on this one. I'm sorry, OP. I think they both do suck here. I think it's an everyone sucks here evaluation. But it is not appropriate to be pooing right next to company when you have friends over. Even in your own apartment, I'd get as far away as possible because I don't want to hear plunk, 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 and go, oh, no, it's just not good, is it? It's rude to tell someone what they should and shouldn't do in their own house. I understand that, but I feel like this was more OP didn't realize what they were doing, and maybe it's just a kind thing to tell them, hey, in the future, look out for this. That's just me though. Some people are different. I understand that. I believe that everyone sucks here, leaning on OP sucks more. Pooping in Public 08 says, everyone sucks here. I'm a strong supporter of pooping wherever, see username for reference, but I think if you have the option of going in a second private bathroom, as opposed to the one that guests might use, then you should definitely do that in the future. However, Max is also childish for just leaving because he could hear someone doing their business. Agreed. I have no shame about the fact I have to poop, but if I have people sitting on the couch, then I'd prefer to head up to the bathroom of my master rather than the one where they're sitting, waiting for my exits, and then will use next. I'd also prefer my guests do the same, frankly. Leaving because someone pooped is ridiculously childish though, and I agree to that also. I'm not saying you should do this, but I've been dating my girlfriend for 1.5 years, and occasionally her dad will come out of the bathroom and warn us that he blew it up. Oh, lovely. I'd say that if you had the option to go elsewhere that offered discretion, you're the a-hole. Your apartment, yes, but not everyone is comfortable hearing and smelling another bowel's exploding. So it was probably a bit awkward for them both having to act like they didn't hear it, etc. No one is saying that you have to hold it in, but if you had the option to dispel it in a more discreet locale, you should do so when with guests as a general courtesy. Posted by user DramaticSherbert612, titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my husband babysit? I never wanted kids. The idea of family is very suffocating to me, and I was never willing to date a man with children. When I met my husband, he said that he didn't have any and didn't want any. A year later, when he was drinking, he admitted that he had gotten his high school girlfriend pregnant when they were both 18 and begged her to abort. But she hadn't wanted to, so he had a son who he had never met and he had signed away his parental rights. I was annoyed that he had lied, but I 100% believe that men have the right to walk away. When my stepson was 16, his mother passed away and he found my husband's contact information from an old friend. I completely supported my husband taking him and stepping up, and I actually really liked him. We have a good friendship, but obviously he doesn't view me as a parent. He married the most annoying woman ever, and they have 3 children. He recently asked if we would be able to babysit overnight so they could go to a wedding. My husband agreed, and I reminded everyone I don't babysit. My husband said it would be fine, and I didn't need to help. Well, that lasted about 10 minutes, because my husband does not know what to do with children, and he was begging me for help. His daughter-in-law gave him a list of rules and things they aren't allowed to eat. So he was in a pissy mood over that, and once the kids actually started running around and making noise, he couldn't handle it and expected me to step in. Well, I didn't. I'm actually a terrible person and let them have water guns, so my husband ended up throwing a tantrum and locking himself in the bedroom. I did make sure the children didn't die, but like I stated to everyone involved, I do not babysit. They got into food they weren't supposed to have, no allergies, and didn't sleep at all. But they are alive. Daughter-in-law is furious with me because I'm the woman and I am apparently responsible and my husband is off sulking. Well, it sounds like they shouldn't have asked you guys to babysit then. That's on your husband, not you. If he can't handle kids, he shouldn't have accepted doing it. They should have got someone that can babysit the children. OP continually says, I do not babysit, I don't want to. I'm not going to babysit these kids. Don't be surprised when she doesn't do a good job of babysitting when she's put into a situation like this. The kids are fine, nothing happened to them, and at the end of the day, that's the best thing you can ask of this situation. OP, not the a-hole. They agreed to your terms of service. They should have actually paid attention to your terms before agreeing. Right? I love how daughter-in-law, coming from a place of no bargaining power, has the audacity to be upset things didn't go according to her rules. Daughter-in-law is wrong to be upset with OP because OP never agreed to babysit, though I wonder if the situation was made clear to daughter-in-law, but she's not wrong to be upset at all. OP's husband completely dropped the ball. If he was unable or unwilling to uphold daughter-in-law's rules, he should have said so up front and declined to babysit if necessary. Is it possible he genuinely, or naively, believed he could pull it off alone? It's one thing to find himself overwhelmed with the job he thought he could handle on his own, and quite another to straight up rage quit and basically remove himself from the situation he committed to completely. Especially when that commitment is keeping 3 mini-humans who can't actually take care of themselves alive. What would he have done if OP hadn't been around? His little tantrum was specifically for her benefit, in order to force her to do what he didn't want to do. If she'd been elsewhere for the evening, he would have had to figure out how to make do all on his own. Kids can be exhausting and tough to wrangle, but when they're under your care, you figure out how to get them through to see tomorrow, no matter how hard it is. I was thinking the same thing. What would husband have done if OP wasn't even there? He would have had to figure it out, period. Posted by user, deleted. Titled, Am I the a-hole for calling the police when my stepson came over with his baby? My wife has a 24-year-old son from a previous relationship, and I'm so glad he was 18 when I met her, because I really don't think I would have been able to marry her. I can't stand him. He is engaged to a woman who has a volatile temper and picks fights over everything. She does not like my wife, and he is too much of a coward to stand up for his mother. My wife had a very traumatic childhood. I mean, I can't even put into words how screwed up it was, and she has a half-sister who was in and out of her life. She loved her sister, and every time her dad and stepmom broke up again, she lost her sister, sometimes for years at a time. As a result, she has issues about allowing herself to love someone who could be taken away. I don't mean like a man who could leave her, but she's unwilling to date someone with minor children in case she got attached. Her son's fiancé has lots of restrictions about the baby, and before he was born, she constantly threatened to go no contact whenever she fought with my wife. My wife decided that she does not want a relationship with her grandchild. At first, I thought she was being dramatic, but she explained how she always used to lay awake at night and feel physically sick, wondering when her sister was going to be taken again, and that she is not signing up for 18 years of pain. My stepson came very today with the baby and banged on the door and demanded that she come out and meet the baby. My wife went upstairs, and I tried to calmly tell him why she won't meet the baby. Then I called him a softie for ever letting this happen. At that point, emotions were high, and he was determined that he was going to get in the house. I warned him that I was going to call the police, and when he didn't leave, I called. He didn't get arrested or anything, but he was in tears by the time the cops got him to leave. This is a hard one. I don't know. I feel like everyone kind of sucks in this situation. I don't know why he's so adamant on getting them to meet the baby. Can't you just leave this mentally ill woman alone? She's made it clear she doesn't want to right now. Give her time to do it. What's your problem? Not the a-hole. Your wife made a very tough choice for her. Info. What kind of restrictions? The rules themselves aren't that abnormal, but she is saying if you feed the kids something I told you not to, you'll never see them again before the child is ever born. I mean, I'd divorce my wife if she cheated on me, but I don't harass her about her hypothetical cheating all the time. If they want her to babysit, she has to do it in their apartment because they don't want the baby near me, no real reason. And if we have family parties, she can't invite her sister because her son hates her sister. But if she chooses to invite her sister again, then she will be on timeout regarding the child. She said if my wife disrespects her, she can't see the child, but they get into vicious fights, and I'd say at least 70% of the time, she provokes them. I don't know. It seems like there is a lot more to this story, and it seems quite complicated. Like, why do you hate the son? Why does the daughter-in-law hate you and her sister? Seems like this is a bunch of family drama. Though, if your wife doesn't want a relationship with the baby, then that's her decision. I don't like her son because he is so spoiled and entitled. I know that is partially her fault, but I also had a single mum who babied me, and I would never treat my mum like this. She paid for his college and gave him an allowance, and he was always begging her for more money. He can't deal with her being in a relationship. I can kind of understand because I was 17 when my mum started dating my stepdad, and it was weird seeing her with a man. but I would never try to ruin the rest of her life just because I had some unpleasant feelings. Neither of them like the sister because she is very, very child-free and resents that her sister had a child. She just fundamentally could not understand that my wife actually had to take care of her son and couldn't be at her beck and call. She also makes fun of him for mooching off his mother and talks about how she would never be with a man who has to run to mommy all the time. But honestly, she isn't wrong. The fiancé doesn't like me because my wife has a much higher tolerance for dysfunction than I do, and lets them get away with more. But I will throw them both out of the house every time she calls my wife a tramp, or a tramp. It's two different words there, sorry. And I'm the only one who can talk sense into my wife about not rewarding them with money. So basically, your wife is also responsible for the dysfunction. She tried to buy her son's love to some extent. No one should be shocked that he wants to keep getting money. You weren't there when he was growing up. For all you know, she was kind of a crap mum, and money was the only way she showed love or support. She kept bringing her sister around her child, despite said sister being a complete ass to her child. That's not okay, and contributes to the evidence for maybe she wasn't a great mum. The daughter-in-law sounds pretty bad, but at this point, the son doesn't know what a functional relationship or family looks like. To him, this drama is normal. Probably to the daughter-in-law too. Also, I'd be interested in their side of it. Does your wife make a habit of ignoring their boundaries? Because that would explain why they felt the need to get out in front of things early. Your wife needed therapy a long time ago. Info. What kinds of things does she and your wife fight about? Literally everything. She will sit there and touch my wife's hair, and my wife does freak out if she's touched, and call her a stupid tramp, and then they will scream at each other over who started it. She asks what things cost and complains that my wife spends too much money on clothes or vacations instead of giving it to them. She says I must be cheating because I look like a cheater. She licked my wife's straw once, so my wife poured the drink on her head. She fights with my stepson and then accuses my wife of getting involved, when really she is telling her to take their trashy relationship somewhere else and not fight in our house. Truly, they will fight over anything. I watched them fight over a hair elastic once, and it ended in her running out of the house crying. Oh my god, this is so dysfunctional. I have to ask, is there any drug use going on? Because none of this is normal behavior I would expect from healthy adults. Not that I know of, no one in the family is even a big drinker. And Awkward Cherry says, not the a-hole. Your wife made a very tough choice for her prolonged emotional health, and if he wouldn't leave, you wouldn't want to get violent with a baby nearby. Edit, Red OP replies, Jesus, everyone sucks here, OP. And someone says to the not the a-hole judgment, I don't think this is a fair judgment. It's like saying all the times OP's wife's parents were in and out of her life was fine because it was for her emotional health. It's really clear from OP's comments that not only did OP's wife have a dysfunctional relationship with her family, but she also perpetuated a cycle of tumultuous relationships with her son. She continued to bring her sister around her son, even though her sister openly resents her son's existence. She married a man with a lot of disdain for her child. It's sad, but not surprising that her son has gone on to start another cycle of toxic relationships with a woman who is an equal participant in these fights with his mother. Not the worst person or consistently instigator. And it is unbearably sad to realize that this newborn's life is starting with all this baggage and a grandmother who refuses to see him now, but might eventually decide to see them, but then might need to leave again for her mental health, but then might come back, but then might leave. I don't know if the judgment should be everyone sucks here or no a-holes here, but I'm definitely not picking 1 to 2 people out of this pile of people who are trapped in a cycle of hurting each other and holding them up as the a-holes. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.